Good morning, I'm Kate Gallego, new mayor of Phoenix. I'm excited to welcome you to our kickoff of a year of celebration of women's suffrage. We are going to begin today's event with a poem from our city poet laureate, Rosemarie Dombrowski.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? I don't think we're mic'd. It's an honor to be here, especially given that I've been a professor of women's literature for more than a decade, and I've witnessed the suffragists, as well as every subsequent wave of feminism, inspire and empower so many young women. So this celebration and this poem are for Stanton and Anthony and Paul, Dickinson and Plath and Rich, and all the women whose histories we've reclaimed and those we've yet to. Stitching stars onto the flag. We have done it again, the perpetual rising from the ash of obscurity, the scorn under the breaths of the critics, the fury of our momentum. Stanton and Anthony at Seneca Falls, declaring our rights and sentiments, that all men and women are created equal, that we will not be degraded by unjust laws, that it is our right to refuse allegiance, like the silence of the sentinels at the White House gate, the women beaten, accused of treason, their signs and burdens growing heavier by the day. Mr. President, how long must we wait for liberty? The civil disobedience of Alice Paul behind bars, the hunger strikes and the women sewing stars onto flags, the late-night workers and the fracturing movement, the ERA passed, reworded, defeated again. Like Adrienne Rich said, there is a book in which our names still do not appear, but we've lived to tell the stories, to reclaim them for our daughters, to ignite the cycle of revolution in greater numbers than before. Thank you.
Thank you for that wonderful poem, the perfect start of our year of celebration of women's suffrage. This is an exciting milestone for those of us in the city of Phoenix. We are the largest city in the country governed by a female majority. And today's event will be our first event with the women of the City Council hosting an event together, which is very exciting. When I was running for City Council, we had only one woman on the council, our Dean of the Women's Caucus, Thelda Williams. And now we have a majority, so thank you for your leadership, and thank you to the women of the council for joining us. Because Phoenix is a relatively new city, we have had women's suffrage for most of our time as a city, and I think we are one of the cities perhaps most influenced by women's suffrage. So in cities like New York and Los Angeles, there's never been a female mayor or a female majority. Here I am the third female mayor in the city of Phoenix. And the same is true at all levels of government, where we have women at the highest levels of our state. We are honored today to have the woman in charge of many things, but today, most importantly, our elections. Our Secretary of State, Katie Hobbs, is here. So if we think it's going to be a busy year for us celebrating women's suffrage at the City of Phoenix, think if you're the Secretary of State. But it'll be a great opportunity to draw awareness and celebrate the history and reclaim it as well, as our Poet Laureate told us. The City of Phoenix has women at every level of leadership. About 80% of our employees have a female director. So our department heads are women, which is wonderful, including in spheres such as public safety with Chief Williams and Chief Kara Kalkbrenner, and we're excited to have our fire union here today to support us as well. It's an important recognition that in issues of equality, this has really been a partnership, that men have been with us here for major milestones, including in 2015 when we passed equal pay for equal work at the City of Phoenix unanimously. And just a few months ago, when the city made a significant commitment to make it easier to breastfeed at city facilities such as the airport. But we do think it's important that women's voices be lifted and heard and have many perspectives on these important issues, and that just as women suffragists paved the way for us, what we do today will determine the future of the next generation. We want to make sure that the city is thinking about the important legacy that we mark today for this year, and we're excited to announce a $10,000 commitment where we will ask the Women's Commission and the Arts Commission to come together and mark the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage. The $10,000 commitment comes through our Citizens Participatory Budget Initiative, which is where we want citizens to be involved in allocating funds for the City of Phoenix. So this will be the first program we've done with the Participatory Budget Initiative, and we're excited to see what the Women's Commission and Arts and Culture Commission come up with to mark the 19th Amendment and its 100th anniversary. My hope is that it will contribute to learning about the contradictions, challenges, and struggles of women's suffrage, and that will inspire us towards the next 100 years of progress. And now, to give us a little perspective on our history, we welcome Cara Pelletier from the League of Women Voters.
Good morning. My name is Cara Pelletier, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Metropolitan Phoenix. The League of Women Voters was founded in 1920, the same year that the 19th Amendment was ratified, which gave women the right to vote after 7 decades of struggle. The League was created to help women carry out their new responsibilities as voting citizens. It is then and is now a nonpartisan organization, neither supporting or opposing candidates or political parties at any level of government. Yet we are an activist, political, progressive grassroots organization. We believe that all of us should play a critical role in government by voting, educating ourselves about how government works, and advocating for legislation that furthers the League's positions. We work with individuals and groups throughout the state to support these activities in Arizona. In recognition of one of the pioneering women in the history of the League and our country, I would like to share some inspiration from one of our founding members, Eleanor Roosevelt. Eleanor Roosevelt, born 1884 and died 1962, is commonly held as one of the most influential American women in the 20th century. In addition to serving as the First Lady of the United States, she also was a newspaper columnist, an author, a diplomat, and a seasoned politician. She was also a formative leader of the League of Women Voters. Deeply involved in social justice work, Eleanor Roosevelt believed strongly that women deserved a place at the table when it came to politics. Prior to her husband's presidency, she worked with several women's groups to advance the cause of the women's right to vote. After the ratification of the 19th Amendment and formation of the League of Women Voters in 1920, she served as the League's Vice President of Legislative Affairs. She lobbied for reforms in Congress and worked tirelessly to strengthen women's role in politics, help mobilize women voters through the League's nonpartisan training and lobbying work. She is quoted as saying, "I have always found that the best workers in a political party frequently are graduates of the League of Women Voters. The League trains good citizens who have a sense of responsibility about what goes on in their locality, in their state, and in their nation." Even after she resigned as Vice President of the League in 1924, she remained an active League member and continued to promote the League's platforms and ideals, including regularly writing for the League of Women Voters in New York's newsletter. Eleanor Roosevelt's work to empower women's participation as voters and political leaders only strengthened after her husband assumed the presidency in 1933. She consistently campaigned for the Roosevelt administration to hire women for executive-level appointments, supported anti-lynching campaigns, and fought for fair housing for minorities. Throughout these efforts, she held press conferences to inform women voters, including urging them to speak their minds and engage on policy issues. After she left the White House in 1945, Eleanor Roosevelt continued to promote women's equality through not only her work with the League, but also with groups like the NAACP and the National Council of Negro Women. As chairman of the Human Rights Commission on the United Nations, she strengthened the League's involvement in the UN and its role as a player and partner in global democracy. In acknowledgement of her invaluable work around women's and human rights, she was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by President John Kennedy. Though she never was awarded the prize, she received countless honor. Decades after her death, she continues to epitomize the powerful role that women, including League members, have played and continue to play in furthering equality, strengthening our government, and making democracy work. Personally, women such as Eleanor Roosevelt have had such a profound impact on my life. I try to lead by example, taking the unpopular position sometimes, and help women overcome obstacles. Through her influence, I became a League member and worked to carry on her legacy of the women suffragettes in our country. The League thanks the City of Phoenix for inviting us to participate in the city's kickoff of the Women's Suffrage's Century Celebration. We look forward to an exciting year of activism and engaging citizens to take advantage of the right to vote that so many before us, like Eleanor Roosevelt, sacrificed and worked so hard to obtain. The League looks forward to an entire year of collaboration with Phoenix and all of the partners here today to help celebrate this historic event. Thank you. I would like to ask Dr. Sharon Thompson, Chair of the Phoenix Women's Commission.
Good morning. On behalf of the Phoenix Women's Commission, it is an honor to be here today to mark this occasion with Mayor Kate Gallego, our City Council, and all of you. The Women's Commission is a group of volunteers who are appointed by the mayor to advise the mayor and the City Council on policy issues impacting women in the City of Phoenix. We advocate and support economic, political, and social policies that improve women's lives throughout the city, and we engage with women throughout the City of Phoenix to learn about their values, their goals, and their priorities. Today, I'm here representing the Commission as we commemorate and celebrate the passage of the 19th Amendment. This amendment helped move our nation one step closer to realizing the ideals of liberty, life, and the pursuit of happiness that were articulated at the nation's founding. In the Black community, parents remind children that we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. And this is no less true of the work that led to achieving this constitutional amendment. We can look back and be inspired by the work of activists like Sojourner Truth, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Ida B. Wells, Susan B. Anthony, Anna Julia Cooper, and the many unnamed women who as early as the mid-1800s began fighting for a woman's right to vote in this country. In Arizona, Frances Willard and other activists applied their efforts and energy to organize, to campaign, and to persuade the all-male legislature to introduce bills for women's suffrage in 1881, 1883, and 1885. These early bills were defeated due to concerns that if women were given the right to vote, the territory, because it was then a territory, would jeopardize its possibility of becoming a state. However, these women and their allies persisted. And when Arizona became a state on February 14th, 1912, its constitution included a woman's right to vote. In doing so, Arizona joined 9 other states where women had the right to vote. However, it would be another 8 years before the United States passed the 19th Amendment, and women across the nation had that same right. As we know, though, a right on paper does not always translate into a right in actuality. And persistent racism kept many Black women and other women of color from actually exercising their right to vote until well into the 1960s. And this underscores the importance of what we're doing here today. Each one of us, each one of you, is required to make rights real. Each one of us needs to have a greater vision for our nation. Each one of us needs to pay attention. Each one of us needs to get involved. And each one of us needs to persist. Someday in the future, when facing the challenges of their time, people will look at what we do today, As we approach this celebration of 100 years of the 19th Amendment, let us have a vision and let's work for it together so that those future men, women, and girls will look back at us and say, I can do this because they did. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. That was a great call to action. I appreciate that. I'm Dana Campbell-Saylor, and I am chair of the Arizona Women's Hall of Fame. First, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Hall of Fame, where we came from, who we are, and what we do, and tell you about a very exciting new exhibit that's being created as we speak. The Arizona Women's Hall of Fame was established by Governor Bruce Babbitt and the Tucson Women's Commission in 1980. We are the oldest nonprofit dedicated to researching and documenting the many historical accomplishments of Arizona women who have made a significant impact in the development of our wonderful state. Our research is housed in the State Library and Archives. Each year, the Arizona Women's Hall of Fame honors 4 deceased legacies and 4 living legacies. Their lives and their contributions matter, even though they were not written into history at the time. As with women today, Arizona suffragettes face divisive issues of race, class, poverty, health, and violence. Our mission is to give voice to their personal narratives, to make certain they are included in Arizona's educational curriculum, be it online, in hand, in collections, in lectures, and in museums. Our mission and vision closely aligns with the Arizona State Capitol Museum's mission of celebrating Arizona's vibrant culture and heritage through history. I, with the Arizona Women's Hall of Fame Board of Directors, are delighted that our Secretary of State, Katie Hobbs, has given us her support and permission to establish an Arizona Women's Hall of Fame permanent exhibition in the Arizona State Capitol Museum. It's a first for Arizona's history. And just a side note, over 20,000 school children go through that museum every single school year. I would like to also thank Mayor Kate Gallego for her support, and she issued a proclamation last May recognizing Arizona women's history. Thank you. I also want to thank the Arizona State Library and Archives. Our state archivists are wonderful. They work incredibly hard preserving our history. We are creating, now about the exhibit, as we speak, we are creating the exhibit. It will be completed and installed by the end of September. The exhibit theme for 2020 is focusing on the 19th Amendment Centennial celebration and the Arizona suffragettes from 1891 through the passage of 1912. The title of the exhibit is Strong, Bold, and Remarkable, celebrating the women who made Arizona history. The campaign for Arizona women securing the right to vote was long and difficult, in sweltering heat, on horseback and buckboard, but they won 8 years before the passage of the 19th Amendment in Congress. The exhibit will also have a section on women of color and their impact to the state's history. Mexican American, African American, Anglo women began voting slowly. However, Native American women could not vote until Congress passed the Indian Citizen Act in 1924. Arizona did not allow Native American to vote until 1948. We were one of the last states. So please come join us, visit the exhibit. I ask that you stop, pause, look at their faces, read their amazing stories. They deserve the respect of being included in history. Every time we vote, we are still standing on their shoulders. Thank you. Thank you. I now have the great privilege of introducing a woman that's given great energy and dedicated much of her life to our wonderful city, Councilman Felda Williams.
Well, I moved here in 1971, and truthfully didn't pay any attention to city politics. In 1973, my husband became a Phoenix police officer. Guess what? I began to pay attention. And I was involved in 1975 when we elected the first Phoenix mayor, Mayor Hance. First woman to be elected here. She had a remarkable career as the mayor of Phoenix. She was mayor for 16 years, the longest of any mayor, and she really led this city. She made it more progressive. She listened to people. She got involved. She took Phoenix to Washington and introduced Phoenix. Everyone thought we were just a little cow town and we had nothing here. And she began the process to really make us acknowledged as something that's alive, viable, and progressive. And her legend lives on. So I'm very proud that have been just one vote in that election, but we made it happen. So we started early and we continue today. We have very strong leadership on the council right now, and I give credit to the women, the mayor and the women. We're not afraid to take on the tough issues, make tough decisions, and make sure it's implemented. And one of those leaders is Councilwoman Deborah Stark. So Deborah, please welcome Deborah.
Good morning. I am honored to be here today along so many strong and intelligent female leaders. Today we celebrate women's suffrage. We reflect on a time when women were denied the right to vote, a time when women were expected to focus only on their homes and family life, not politics and progress. But today, I'm very proud to say that I serve on a city council that is a female majority and a mom majority. You know, both my grandmothers were born before they had the right to vote. And I remember my mother's mother telling me about my great-grandmother and how she fought for us to have the right to vote. And she told me to always treasure what my great-grandmother did. And I'm here to say, thank you, grandmother. Thank you, great-grandmother. I am so proud to be here. It is important to reflect on history so that we continue to grow and make progress. Not only does Phoenix have great examples of female leadership, Arizona has a history of strong women in government. 20 years ago, 5 women were elected to serve in the state's 5 most important roles. Jane D. Hall was elected governor, and I was a big fan of her because she passed growing smarter legislation that dealt with planning, and she actually asked me to help formulate the legislation. What a point of pride for me. Betsy Bayless was elected Secretary of State. Janet Napolitano was elected Attorney General. Carol Springer was elected Treasurer. And my good friend, and I consider her a friend, Lisa Graham Keegan, was elected Superintendent of Public Instruction. And that was in 1998. And here we are, 90 years after the women's right was given, the women were given the right to vote. So let's always treasure what we have. It's important that we as women get out there and fight for our rights and vote. And now I would like to turn it over to one of my great friends, Laura Pastor, Councilwoman Pastor.
So before I begin, I would like to thank my colleagues. As being moms, we all are patient, understanding, and are able to see the bigger picture to get to the vision where we need to get to. So I want to thank my colleagues for all your hard work in policy. So as we celebrate the ratification of the 19th Amendment, it's important to remember that women of color and low-income women are still unable to exercise their right to vote even after the amendment's passage. Some states even passed laws to make it harder for minorities to vote, with the creation of literacy tests and poll taxes. They used violence and fear tactics against the women to make it harder for them to want to go vote. But it wasn't until the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that Black women in the South were able to exercise the right to vote without restrictions. Some Latina, Native, and Asian American women still waited. What ended up happening, others still waited. They waited until 1975 when the United States federal government passed voting rights amendments to prohibit discrimination against language minority citizens. Many women, many of our ancestors, many of our family members of women worked very hard for the ratification of the 19th Amendment. But women still continue to work to ensure that their voting rights are protected even today. And women still wait, but women also fight for today. In the sense, in 2019, practices like gerrymandering, as we see today, census is coming, as we see what's happening in census, redistricting will be happening. Gerrymandering happens during that time. Voter ID laws disenfranchise women and people of color by making it harder for them to vote and diluting the effect of their votes. So this is why it's important to honor these contributions. This is why we continue to protect the rights of women. And this is why we continue, as we sit today, to continue to fight and push the struggle forward and get rid of the struggle. So thank you for being here. Thank you for pushing for women. Thank you for supporting women. And I would like to invite Councilwoman Betty Gallardo to end the meeting.
Wow, what a great morning. This is the best way that I could start my morning. My name is Betty Guardado, and I'm your councilwoman from District 5. And I think the first housekeeper to be elected to City Council. First and foremost, I just want to thank the efforts of the League of Women of Voter Rights throughout the state of Arizona. I want to thank you for all of your efforts and everything that you guys have done to make sure that women vote in our state. In 2018, there was a record showing that there was an increase of 10% of people voting in the state of Arizona. And majority of those people, who do you think they were? They were women, and they were women of color, right? How amazing is that? Right there. That we had such an increase, and of course, like always, it's women leading the way. And my prior career as a union organizer, that is what I did, right? My job was, a lot of people think it's unionized places. No, my job, which I took a lot of pride in, was making sure that housekeepers had rights on the jobs. Right? I don't know how many of you guys have heard of the Me Too program, right? And the Me Too campaign that was out there. And that was started by the union that I used to work for, right? Making sure that we had housekeepers voicing the things that they were going through day in and day out, right? Being a housekeeper, I can tell you that it's not easy to go into those rooms and not knowing what you're gonna find inside those rooms. And getting those women to stand up and say, me too, this happened to me too, is what I think also helped boost our numbers in terms of voter registration. Like being able to really get women to stand up, to be able to fight, but then on top of that, teaching them, the way that we're gonna make real change is by getting people to actually vote, right? And getting good women to vote. I am very honored to work alongside, once again, with Mayor Kate Gallego, right? Like it was an amazing thing for us in 2013 when she won on the city council. And now, like for me, it's an honor to work with a majority of women on the city council, right? Like if you would have asked me 5 years ago if I'd be standing here in front of you as your city councilwoman, the answer would be no. Because statistics show that someone like me should not be running for office, and someone like me should probably still be cleaning rooms. And the fact that we're changing, that narrative, right? Having our mayor be a female and a young female, I think gives all of us a lot of hope, right? I think our city council, thank you guys so much. Our city council gives a lot of hope, right, for our young women to stand up and say, okay, I'm gonna register to vote, I'm gonna get everyone around me to vote, and I'm gonna vote myself. And I think we're gonna continue to do that. I am speechless, right, and thinking about how much we're all going to be able to keep doing together. And I can only imagine if this is what our city looks like today, I can only imagine what it's going to look like in the next 10 years. And as a mom, I'm a mom of 2 young children, and in my lifespan, if I can teach them how to be respectful towards women, I think I've done my job. So once again, thank you so much for all of your support, and I look forward to working with our majority of moms on the city council, that we can continue to do great things for women here in the city of Phoenix. Thank you.